All right, hello everybody. So today I get to talk about something more normal for my brain. All right, instead of picking up on something that's specifically news related, it's a topic that of social responsibility versus this concept of social justice. And of course, this lends into virtually everything that's causing chaos in our news world. Okay, let's look at these. Social justice is not a real thing. Okay? First and foremost, let's break down the language. If you put an adjective or modifier in front of justice, it is no longer justice. For people to say, well, it's justice under certain conditions, okay, what conditions are you leaving out? Social justice, in theory, would mean justice in a social platform. For that to exist, let me shift this camera just a bit here. There we go. Okay. In theory, that would mean justice in the social realm. Explain. You can't. Because justice essentially means everybody gets what they deserve. And that gets into highly subjective and emotional responses. Because people throw in, well, what do you think they deserve? Doesn't matter. Justice is a balancing of the scales. That's why justice is shown as scales. Okay? Yes, I wanted to use the Eurocentric version of the Greco-Roman goddess holding scales with blindfold on. But, it exists beyond that. The concept of justice is not indicative or endemic to any group or ethnicity. It exists where humans exist, and the outside of a human is irrelevant. Justice essentially means everybody gets what they deserve. You murder somebody, you get the death penalty. That's kind of how it goes. Or how it should go, in theory. But then people question, well, what's murder? If your car swerves off the road because the steering arm or the idle arm breaks, your car goes skipping across the sidewalk and runs over somebody, they've dead. Oh, well, there was no intention involved, therefore it's not murder. But getting back to the topic, justice is justice. Justice is a social responsibility. Everyone gets what they deserve. This is where the conflict that gets thrown into people's faces generally you get a response from conservatives of the difference between equality and equity being starting point versus ending point. Well, guess what? In neither case is there justice. Everybody being treated equally under the law, that would be equality. That is socially responsible. However, the argument that not everyone starts at the same point does not invalidate it, even though there is an emotional response that says, well, people who come from a position of privilege, and generally in America right now they want to say white privilege. Well, guess what? That is another racial generalization. The poorest county in America, the most poverty-stricken county in America, is 97% Caucasian. The white people are so impoverished that they can't even leave to go try. But it doesn't fit the narrative of creating social division. Equity literally is social equity would literally be everyone ending up with the same outcome. There's a poster that inspires some people in the sociological fields, soft sciences of social reform, that shows 3 people trying to watch a baseball game over the fence. Tall guy, middle guy, short guy. They all have an equal box. The tall guy is just taller. The middle guy can finally peep over, and the short guy is still too short to see anything. The equity, or allegedly social justice version, shows the tall guy standing on the ground, the middle guy standing on his box, and the tall guy's box being given to the short guy so that he can get on it and look over. While that is nice, and if the tall guy wanted to give it, then everything would be fair and equitable. Everyone will have been treated equally. They will have all had the box and done with their box as they chose. It's kind of a libertarian view. There's nothing libertarian, liberal, just, or equal, or equitable about saying, okay, you, tall guy, we are taking your box. You don't have a choice, and we, the administration, are giving it to the short person. Similarly, in the case of this mythical administration making choices without our input and creating violations of justice, we see this done with, black people are oppressed by white people. There are more ethnicities in this country, but administrative peoples, those people in government, whether federal, state, or local, insist on maintaining the argument between black people and white people. They're not really interested in getting a just society. Remember, justice is a social responsibility. Equal treatment is social responsibility. Our country does not have a systemic racism problem because our laws and systems have been adjusted to do away with rules that say only people of this ethnicity may do that. Only people of that ethnicity may do this. Only people of this color may drink at these water fountains. All of those kind of rules have been done away with. There are individual humans in our country who insist on maintaining their individual thought patterns and using positions of power to enforce them. In other words, yes, there are racist cops. There are racist politicians. However, the argument that we get thrown by these people who claim to be social justice advocates is that all white people are racist. Okay, let's look at this objectively for a minute. Activists who say this kind of stuff, people like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, these are old white people. But they are the ones who are advocating these comments, or pretty much anyone from the sociology department at Berkeley University, UC Berkeley, I should say. I do poke fun at them. Invariably, what you find are lots of old white people claiming that old white people are bad. But I guess they haven't looked in the mirror to see who they're talking about. Now, these all are distractions that are intended to keep the masses of the American population fighting amongst themselves so that we don't see what's going on with the people who are controlling the rules. Anyone has the ability to do what they're wishing to do. Anyone can go to school and learn. You don't have to go to college to get an education. You have to go to college to get a certificate that certifies paperwork that shows the rest of the world that somebody signed off on your knowledge. Yeah, that's what it is. But anyone can learn. An example is at Cambridge University, or I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong, but it's Cambridge College, Oxford University, England, has a professor who is of Roma descent. For those of you who don't know the proper use of words, we're normally calling them gypsies. That happens to be kind of a racially derogatory comment or word. He never went to high school. He didn't even finish going to middle school, as I recall. However, he chose to read books as he could get them. He chose to learn as he could get them. He got involved in a conversation where he was then asked a few questions, and Oxford University bestowed a PhD on him because his individual learning had surpassed everything that a normal student would have already done. And he's now a professor there. Anyone can do it. Let's face it, both President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama, both college graduates, both legal professors, both of them are considered constitutional law scholars. But according to American pop culture, black people aren't supposed to do that. Why not? Why not? I'll tell you why. Although the gentleman's name is going to escape me all of a sudden, a German immigrant to the United States, he literally escaped Nazi Germany and became a college professor that at last recognition, in the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement, worked at University of San Diego, UC San Diego, and specifically taught Marxism. and specifically developed social practices that would encourage African Americans to separate from white America, specifically targeted feminists to be opposed to the perception of patriarchy. Because all of this would, and according to his writings, all of this would lead to the social breakdown of America that would allow Marxism to take over and develop the Soviet culture that has yet to have a positive outcome. Justice fails under those kind of regimes because the administrative party makes up its rules as it chooses, when it chooses, for its own benefit, and the rest of the masses are left to basically be peasant status workers. They become the proletariat for the bourgeois who are claiming to be standing up for the people when they're really just padding their own nests for their own personal benefit. There is no reason and no excuse for any person in America to look poorly at any other person in America, even if they happen to be migrants who come from another country. If they happen to look differently, guess what? We're all still Americans. That's how we build a sustainable future. These allegations and protests of social justice do not engage justice. They are not sustainable. Not because, oh, well, your skin color is losing power. That's all you're worried about. No. It's because when you point out things like that, you instill resentment. And all that leads to is cyclical revenge. Oh, this one group is oppressed. They have to be saved from this other group who are bad. Okay, we're going to oppress that group. Okay, now the formerly oppressed group are put into positions of power where they're able to get revenge for the slights against them. And then the pendulum swings, and the people who were in power, who are now being oppressed, are now having to be protected because they were oppressed, and now they push to get positions of power, where they then start to oppress the people who were oppressing them. And all you wind up with is a sick, twisted, abusive cycle of abuse. Cycles of revenge. That's not sustainable. All that leads to is burnt out husks of society. If you look on history, you don't find the people who created society, who created civilization, destroying everything around them. Yes, you do see the people who created civilization destroying things while they're building other things. Let's face it, using European history, Charlemagne, Charles the Great, Carlo-Magnus, pick your poison, language changed since then, he oppressed Europe. He took a concept of Christianity as a central focus point so that he could have a thing to bring people together. He then forced the subjugation of various rival heathen tribes in order to bring them into a cohesive group developing the Holy Roman Empire. By working together, we create a greater society. The parts create the greater whole. When the parts fragment, all you wind up with is shrapnel. with that, we're going to close this out, and I'm going to be away from this undisclosed location to another undisclosed location. So I won't see you next week, or you won't see me next week. But I will be back the week after that. Y'all have a great 2 weeks, and I'll see you then. I'm out.